feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. It's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Citadel baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good and warm Thursday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Causes, not just cases, MotleyRice.com, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at StokesVW.com. Make sure you have downloaded the JB and Goldwater app. We just got another download. I know exactly who it was.
How do you know? Was it your wife?
No.
Oh,
because I was on the phone. It was Mike Morgan.
There you go.
I was on the phone with him. So he has promised he is downloading the app. He has not had a chance to do it, but he just did it. So we're good. So there you go. We've won.
Acceptable. It's not like he's busy. He can download anything he wants. He's not busy. He's not jumping all around.
Nope. Nothing going on. Called the game tonight at Auburn. He will call the South Carolina-Alabama game on Saturday for those interested in hearing the great voice of Mike Morgan. And we're hoping to try to get him in tomorrow. So really excited about that. Really excited to be here as always. Make sure that you're commenting in the Share Healthcare chat lines as Craig has already done. And follow us on social media at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB and at Darren Goldwater. Coming up on today's program, though, in this hour, David Shelton with the Post and Courier. He will pop in because we're in the middle of high school playoff hoops in our borders. And there are a lot of college baseball stars I want to get to with David as well, who are playing here locally in Columbia, Clemson, so on and so forth. We'll fuss and discuss some of that. At 1:05 today, the current voice of the Gamecocks, Derek Scott, will be in. He called the win last night. Carolina beats Mississippi State, and they've now won 4 in a row with a quad one chance in Tuscaloosa on deck. So we're going to go back and we'll go forward with him there. We'll also look at the weekend's baseball series against George Washington, where South Carolina looks to sweep because next weekend they've got the Clemson Tigers coming up. App State will be sandwiched between those two series, and Carolina looks to kind of keep rolling on the diamond there. So we'll talk to Derek about all that, and then Scott Glaze about 1:35, and I think we know what's on the agenda with him. Although a lot on the course is happening, it's what is off of the course with the PGA that has everybody's attention. Phil Mickelson, clearly. So Scott's coming up in just a little while. It's a full boat. It was a great night in college hoops. Anybody that missed the leak and the 3 overtimes in the Xavier Providence game, feel bad for you. It was maybe the game of the year in college basketball. I mean, it was so much fun to watch. So we'll get to that in a little bit, Darren. But we will start with what happened in Columbia. It was South Carolina's night once again. 4th straight. Jermaine Cousinard continues to do what many people thought he'd do this year and be the signature piece of South Carolina's basketball team. And he was last night. Carolina has jumped 7 spots in the net rankings. For those that are paying attention, they're now up to 87. And if you beat Alabama, you're going to be in the top 80 more than likely. So big win for the Gamecocks last night. An incredibly well-played game by South Carolina for the most part as well. And here they are. They're 17-10, and they're in a tie for 5th place in the SEC.
Same theme, right? It was the biggest game of the year because it was a game with South Carolina trending in the right direction, Mississippi State going in the wrong direction. You had to get the game. It was right there in front of you for the taking. It's a game where maybe earlier in the year you would have stubbed your toe. We saw it earlier in the year when momentum happened, bang, hit a wall. Didn't hit that wall. Maybe Mississippi State's hit that wall. South Carolina hasn't hit that wall. It was a game they needed. It was a game they got. It was a game they never trailed in. It was a game where their defense played very, very well, which has been their calling card. And it's a game where they were mostly efficient offensively, too. It was a good night for South Carolina. And now, on the heels of the biggest game of the year, they have the biggest game of the year coming up at Alabama. That's the way it is for this team. Don't worry so much about the net for the fans who are clamoring because Frank Martin said something about it. Pay no attention because keep winning. It's going to take care of itself. It's just a guide, just a guide. Keep winning takes care of itself.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do. You know, it's certainly something. Look, the NCAA has the committee has made net rankings a part of our conversation because they made net rankings a part of our conversation. That is their tool to judge basketball teams. And so if that's their tool and it's public information, then people are going to pay attention to it. But to your point, you're right. If you keep winning, this is going to take care of itself. If you win this week, I'll go ahead and throw it out there. You're gonna be on that bubble where you're not gonna be inside the bubble. You're gonna still be on the outside looking in, but you're gonna be in it. You're gonna be in maybe not the next 4 out, but the next 4 out. And you're gonna have to go beat Missouri. So you know they have now put themselves in position. They got to get the one big one though, and they have gotten 2 big ones in. Well, shoot, they're all big at this point in time. You know, Mississippi State is largely this year has been a pretty good team. They got the best of South Carolina earlier. LSU proved last night how good they are. You know, they hung right in there with Kentucky. So that what they just did by beating LSU over the weekend, that was a great win for the Gamecocks. It was an earned win, and they are earning it
Kentucky
right now.
Was down 2 guards. They were down Wheeler and they were down Washington, but it was a good performance for LSU. It was a good win for South Carolina. They didn't play well, but they won, and that's what matters. So again, they played better though against Mississippi State, and it's cool to reference the net because it is a talking point, but it's not for the average fan to be out there like jumping off a ledge. Take a breath.
No,
just go win some games.
Yeah, because I mean, it's right. There are teams that are going to be in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s in the net and not get in. And then there's going to be teams in the 70s and the 80s, not many, but there will be a couple that do get in. And Carolina is hoping to be one of those teams, largely probably in the upper 60s or 70s, is probably about as high as they can go. And let's say they win them all, which that's not going to happen. So, yeah, you know, you keep winning. I had a fiery exchange with somebody who's very close to me, who said, "Okay, you know, but let's still be careful here. Let's still pump the brakes. You know, it was a buzzer beater to beat Ole Miss, and you know they didn't play well and against LSU, but they got similar to what you said yesterday. You know, they didn't play well, but they beat LSU because Cousinard had a good night. Mississippi State just hasn't really been playing well. Georgia wasn't really that good." I said, that's enough of that crap. I don't want to hear it. They have earned the wins. Period. They won the game because if we really want to pick apart every win by every college basketball team in the country, I'll guarantee you I can find 1,000 examples of games where, well, they lost because their guy wasn't there, or they won because this guy had a good night. Every game's going to have that example. It's enough. It doesn't matter. They won the game. Period. The end. That's it. It's over. The conversation is done. They beat a team last night that they lost by 14 to earlier in the year, and they dominated them from start to finish last night. So, you know, Darren, this isn't a conversation for you or largely anybody that's in our audience, but there are still people out there that they just don't want to believe it. I'm like, well, you know what? You should, because there's 4 W's in the last 4 games, not 4 L's, not 2 L's, not one, none, 4 wins. Who cares how they do it? They're winning.
Yeah. And I get both sides, right? Because I've been sitting here giving that side as well, but also saying it's the win is the most important part. Because it is easy to tear it apart. If you want to tear it apart, it's easy to do that. But at the end of the day, where this team is, the conversation has to have one focus. I'll sit here and tell you what I think happened in the game or what might happen. End of the day, this team has a couple games left here, right? If they can win 2 of them and set themselves up going into the SEC tournament and grab a game, maybe 2, that's what matters here. That then you could start arguing about seeding and stuff like that. Then you can have a new argument to go by, because at the end of the day, where this team is right now, we can't go back and change the past, stuff like that. I can have this conversation with Indiana right now going the opposite way, but they still have a chance too. But right now with this team, they're going the correct way and winning games, and they're in a position to stay in position to be talked about for the tournament. If they go win at Alabama, then they will be talked about nationally as look out for South Carolina. That's 5 straight, and they just went to Alabama, who's impossible to beat at home, and beat them at home. They could look as bad as they've ever looked. If they win that game, everyone's going to be talking about one of the hottest teams in the country.
Yeah, I was just talking with Mike Morgan, and he mentioned something about Alabama. He said, they don't rebound well. So if you can get them to play your brand of basketball, because they're going to fire up a ton of threes, and if they're missing a lot of those, you're going to have a chance to get that game the way that you want to play that game if you're the Gamecocks, which is at a little bit of a slower pace than how the Tide would like to run down in 1 or 2 passes and then fire it up from long range if they can, especially in Coleman Coliseum. It is, and it's always been, Frank said it last night, that place has been a dagger for Carolina. Frank hasn't won there, and he hasn't won in Rupp, but he's won everywhere else in the SEC. And for whatever reason, Alabama isn't this good every year. They're just not. Alabama is not some traditional power in the league, but even years when Alabama has stunk, Carolina can't go over there and win for whatever reason. It's been like that at Ole Miss too, So maybe that's a good omen, but Alabama's better than Ole Miss, clearly. So, look, they've won 7 of 10 games in the SEC. And the 3 losses that they have are against Mississippi State on the road, Tennessee, and Kentucky. It's all right. They're okay. They've done a nice job. So I saw here in the Share Healthcare chat lines, who I don't know who said it, but Ashley, last night's effort looked more like a Frank Martin team than any other this season. Enough offense, suffocating defense, and a passionate fight. And I agree with you. This is classic. This is a classic. This is Kansas State, and this is South Carolina. Classic Frank Martin, where you hit a stretch run where your guys have all kind of figured it out, and you just got to hope that they have, that they'll have a good night. They've got it figured out. They just got to be able to have a good night with that. There's a lot of games that they played earlier this year where they just didn't have it figured out. They looked discombobulated. Nobody really knew what was going on. And this team is now, they've got some confidence and they've got some swagger. And Devin Carter, Darren, Taquan Woodley, they're not freshmen anymore. They've played 30 games. You're not really, at some point in time, you're not really a freshman anymore, So I like where they are. And I don't know that they could be in a better spot from a play and confidence standpoint than they are right now, heading to where they're going this weekend in Coleman Coliseum.
Yeah, to back that up, it was the Gamecocks' 3rd best defensive efficiency performance of the year. And again, points per possession here. They were giving up less than 0.9 points of possession in that game. Didn't give up a single 3. It's the 2nd time they've done that. And if you want to carry that over to the Alabama game, Alabama shoots threes at a very low percentage, but a very high rate. They get more of their points inside the arc, but if they're hot outside, that's a problem because they're chucking them up. They get more inside than they do outside, but they chuck it up. So, again, if you want to take some confidence from this one into that one, the fact that Mississippi State didn't hit a single 3, and that's the 2nd time Carolina's done that this year to an opponent, you can lean on that stat.
Absolutely. You're spot on. I want to go to something here that I was looking, and this is not updated, and I was looking at it this morning from Joe Lenardi, who I trust. I think most of us trust largely with a lot of the, his bracketology. So he put out, I think today he's due another breakdown, and back on February the 22nd. So that was Tuesday. before Tuesday night's games were played, and then obviously before last night's games were played, his latest bracketology was out. And he had as the first 4 out, Darren. And this is I'm going down this road because we mentioned earlier, and I agree with you. Hey, forget the net rankings and this and the other. Just focus on winning games. But this is where a lot of people have some confusion in how does some of this stuff work? So as of Tuesday afternoon, Lenardi's first 4 out were SMU, BYU, Oklahoma, and Dayton. Essentially 69, 70, 71, and 72, the teams that would come after the field of 68, right? And on, I guess, was it Tuesday night, Oklahoma played Texas Tech, and they got the doors blown off of them. They got beat by 24 points.
That did happen, yep.
And now that one game, a loss on the road in a top 10 Texas Tech team, that's not an eliminator by any means. But here's I guess where some people stand. They're like, well, okay, now wait, hold on just a second here. At some point in time, record truly kind of needs to matter, right? Like you got the Gamecocks at 17-10, and we're all talking about just keep winning, and they'll get into the quote conversation. They're 8-7 in the league. Oklahoma is 14-14, and they are 4-11 in the Big 12. And people are like, okay, maybe you've been, and I know they had some big wins earlier in the year. Matter of fact, they beat Arkansas and Tennessee in the SEC. And I think they earlier in the season did upset Texas Tech. So they got some payback on Tuesday night for that.
They got good wins.
But they have 14 losses, and they only have 4 in the league. And there's people who are like, and I'm one of them, like, okay, isn't it more representative of maybe you just had like some good nights, but overall you're really not that good? Like, as opposed to teams like South Carolina and others out there. Not this just isn't a Gamecock conversation, who it's like, largely, they're actually a pretty good team. They maybe just had some off nights here and there. But the other side, it feels like there is more weight being put on the fact that, well, they had 3 or 4 good wins. Yeah, but they've lost 14 games. and they're one of the first 4 out. That doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't know that anybody can give me an explanation that will make it make sense. But at the end of the day, they're going to continue to slide, and they'll move off the bubble anyways. But that's where people are like, wait, some of this crap just doesn't make any sense.
The how you ended it right there is exactly right. We're not at Selection Sunday yet. So today is a different here's a cliche. It's a different day than tomorrow. So it depends on how this keeps going. Oklahoma is trending way wrong. I just added it up. I think they've lost 11 of their last 13. They've lost 5 straight. Their most recent one was an absolute disaster. But the reason they are higher, they do have wins that South Carolina just flat doesn't have. Here's the good news. You've got 2 of them sitting right in front of you to go get, and then maybe more. I know there's a 3rd game there, and then maybe more in the SEC tournament. So that resume will stack up and be favorable if South Carolina keeps winning. So yes, I see what you're saying, and there's like, they're not playing well at all. And the most recent thing in your mind is they just got crushed at Texas Tech. All of that is fair. They're going the wrong way. South Carolina, they're going to pass each other if these trends continue, and pass each other in like 2 days if these trends continue.
Maybe like now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and look, to Oklahoma's credit, I mean, let me list their losses here, Darren. I mean, the Big 12 is super. Yeah, they lost
best league in the country by a good margin. Yeah,
I mean, they lost at Baylor, which they were number 1 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
They lost at the time 21 Texas. They lost at TCU, and TCU's having a pretty good year. They're 17-9. They're 6-8. They're probably going to be a tournament team. They lost to Kansas. They lost to Baylor, both top 7 teams, if you want to be more specific. They lost in the SEC Big 12 Challenge on the road at Auburn, which, who isn't losing at Auburn? They lost to TCU at home. They lost at Oklahoma State. And then they've lost 4 in a row at Kansas, Texas, at Iowa State, and then at Texas Tech. So top 10, top 15, top 5, top 25. They're all really good. There's not a team I just listed that's bad. Oklahoma State might be the one team that you go, but but they didn't win any of them. Like they lost the games. Like you just said, they've lost 11-13. So at some point in time, it's like Carolina. Like, well, you got to win some of these games. They're like, well, hello, we have won 7 of 10. They've lost 11 of 13. I don't care who they played.
Well, you talk about it a lot, right? About losses even on the road to very good teams can certainly not hurt you as badly, and in some cases they can help you. This is where the strength of the Big 12 is helping Oklahoma here, because South Carolina, if you go through South Carolina's losses, they don't have as many, and they don't have as many on the road, right? They lost to Auburn, so that's not going to ding them up. They were on the road at Tennessee and Arkansas. Those are comparable to what you just listed for Oklahoma. And the other South Carolina hasn't gone through the gauntlets of the 2 games against the top teams in the SEC. They're getting more of the middle bottom teams in the SEC in that rotation this year. So the schedule hasn't done them any favors, wins or losses.
Yeah, but now it will.
Now it will.
They got to go to Auburn. They got to go to Alabama, and then they got to go to Auburn. And
yes,
this sounds really far fetched, but if they don't win the game this weekend, they still have a chance by going to Auburn. Now, it's very low. Nobody's beating Auburn at Auburn, and I know that. But it is. This has been a fun ride. If you're a Carolina fan, it's really been fun to watch. And I think the question here, and we're going to talk to Derek in a while, so we're obviously I'm going to ask him this, is have they turned the corner? Like, seriously, like, are they just hot, or have they turned the corner? Because there is a difference. There is a difference. I mean, you can also be hot and turn the corner, which is the best of both worlds. But some teams get hot, and they're just hot. And then they run into somebody that cools them off a little bit, and they can't get it going again. But if you've turned the corner and you run into somebody that shuts you down for a night, it doesn't mean that you aren't still playing good basketball. It might mean that you lost. It might mean that you didn't play well, but it doesn't mean that you're back where you were. So have they turned the corner? And, I think there's a part of me that says they have. There's part of me that says that there are some things that have gone their way that weren't going their way before. And then there's a part of me that says, I don't know if they've turned the corner, but they certainly have figured out some things that are working better for them than prior to. Frank even said it last night. We've changed our half-court offense. That's helped. If you've watched them defensively, we mentioned it yesterday, you're going to have to start shifting back into some zone. These guys, Frank teams are man defenses. Always have been. But this team seems to be better in zone defense for whatever reason. Maybe these guys, that's a lot of, Darren, they have 7 transfers on the roster. I'd have to go back and look at the strategy and how these teams were built that all these guys played on before they came to Columbia. But maybe where a lot of them came from, that's all they learned at the college level was zone, 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 zone. And all of a sudden coming to South Carolina and going, dang, this man stuff kind of sucks. It just hadn't sank in yet. So, maybe that's why they're a little bit more comfortable playing a zone defense. So I don't know. I'm not a basketball coach, but I do know that they've made adjustments that are not traditional to Frank Martin type teams, and they've won 4 in a row.
And the rotation's a little bit shorter. They got more help in the front. Brandon Martin played like no time and got 7 boards and led the team in rebounds. So the guys who are on the floor are producing. They're giving them the minutes, and the bench is shorter. Someone mentioned that in our Share Healthcare chat line as well. Mm-hmm. Some teams just function better. It happens, right? You're never going to see Jim Boeheim drop out of that 2-3 at Syracuse, but you'll see Coach K throw up a zone every now and then if it's in the best interest of his team. That's part of, now he won't do it a lot, but that's part of being a good coach, being able to adjust and say, listen, I know this is how I want to do things. This is how I've had success in the past. This team is better this way, and it's different. That's true across all sports. So that absolutely has been a big part of it. That concerns me a little bit going to Alabama because of what we just talked about. I will say this, though. I'm curious about the betting market, and we're going to learn a lot about what Vegas thinks for this game, because this line is probably going to open the Alabama line around 10 in that range, give or take a point probably. And I'm curious to see where the big money comes in, because you could see people push South Carolina down, thinking South Carolina, to your point, has turned a corner or they're hot. It's going to be hard to tell what they believe there, but if that's what the betting market believes, that's going to tell you something too.
Yeah, I agree. This is like I said, Darren, this is fun. This is what it's all about, man. I mean, Carolina has got a chance here. And with every win, they have more of a chance. By the way, as it pertains to net rankings, if they go get beat at Alabama this weekend,
that's okay.
It's not going to matter.
Yeah,
it's not going to matter from the net standpoint. They have literally everything to gain and nothing to lose this game. Seriously. So you just you go do what you can do, and they're confident. I do want to get to some of these comments over here on the in the Share Healthcare chat lines. Hey, Ashley, great to see you. And he says, great to see the home crowd fired up last night. That was neat. There's always this one cat in the student section who's got a Gamecock basketball jersey on. He's so funny, this little kid. So God bless him. I appreciate him being out there every night. Greg said they close out very well on the three of late. Impressive how quickly they collapse and close out. And again, that's generally not the case with zone. If you've got a kind of a loose zone, it's not going to. But this one's been pretty good. Craig said James Reese is the best defender I've seen since notice his feet are so quick. That's why he plays. Even when he's not firing it up at the rate that he was earlier in the year. Lance. Hey, Lance. I don't care what happens. This team has showed me progress, and our best players have stepped up, and that's what I wanted to see. And you're largely right there. Ryan said people need to realize that the further you get into the year, the less the net will change. The more data available, the less that new data changes the overall picture in terms of net ranking. And yeah, there's truth in that. But they did take a huge jump last night, 7 points. That's significant compared to what it's been. Craig, does anyone else cringe and say no when Keyshawn fires up a three, but he's making some? Yeah, no, not when he's making some. I don't. I'm like, hell yeah. And then last night he fired one up about 10 feet outside the basket, and they're making posters of that one today. Ryan said, Cousinard is the tide that is rising all boats. Amazing how one player with confidence can change a team. And that is the Jermaine Cousinard that people were hoping to see. He has been really, really good and really confident the last couple of games. That's been fun. Tyler said they have Ashley, with this streak and the potential of landing Gigi, I'd say Frank's hot seat significantly cooled. Good for him. Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously that's going to change if they turn around and lose every game to the end of the year. So it's still, I think, wait and see mode, but largely you're right. Right now it has changed. Goes to show you too, Darren, how many people have you seen complaining about Frank Martin's sideline demeanor in the last week?
It's amazing. I mean, winning.
Nobody.
Wow. So
nobody
that
says a freaking word. I know. It is so amazing. I mean, and that's just the world we live in. It's the guy that empties your trash can. If he looks like a prick and he accidentally dumps some of the trash on the street every time he comes by, you're going to say that guy looks like a total jerk. And I don't want him picking up my trash anymore. But if he looks like a total jerk and every time that can goes up and into the back of the truck, there's never anything left on the street, you're not going to say a word about his facial expressions. You're just not. All right. Is he doing the job or not? That's all you care about. You find reasons to bitch and moan about the other stuff when it's not going your way and you can't control it. So that's kind of, there you go. That's my, let's see here. Jamie, I think they have turned the corner. Defense has been better. Ball movement has been great. And even Keyshawn Bryant has been shooting well. And then Jamie said, a different Jamie Henson, just can't lose to Missouri. That would end our chances most likely. Oh, yeah, it would.
That would be bad.
But we have huge opportunities against Bama and Auburn. Really need to steal one of those. No doubt. So
if you win both those, then Missouri might not kill you. If you go 2-1 and it's Alabama, Auburn, and somehow, some way you lost to Missouri, it wouldn't kill you. It wouldn't be good, but it wouldn't kill you.
Yeah, no, right. I agree. And the one thing that I don't want to look, the Missouri game, yeah, that would if you don't win those other two, that one would that be a dagger?
Yeah.
But the one thing that and it's going to happen because we don't have all 500,000 Gamecock fans in this state watching our program, so they can't hear me out on this. And not that I'm always right, but Darren, I think I'm pretty close to right about this. let's say they win 20 games and they don't get in. You cannot run to Twitter and say it was Coastal and Princeton that kept you out, because it wasn't. I'm sorry, but it wasn't. That's not what it was. Princeton was the second game of the year, all right, on a neutral floor, and it's a quad 3 loss. Coastal, quad 3 loss on the road, but those were not the killers. I'm telling you. If you have to go back to the resume, it's not any of the SEC losses either. It is the teams that you beat in the non-con that did not live up to expectations, and that is nothing you can control outside of winning more games against teams you weren't supposed to beat. All right, maybe, yes, they're going to have some responsibility on their shoulders. There's no question about that. I'm not taking blame away from the Gamecocks if they don't get in. But the fact of the matter is, right now, at 108 and at 109 in the net rankings are Florida State and Princeton. So how is Princeton hurting you more than Florida State by Florida State not being what they were supposed to be? It's not. It's not. So Georgetown hasn't won a game. They're 200 in the net rankings. Darren, I mean, you're better. If I said, Darren,
yeah, they've been fun.
I'm going to put $1,000 on the fact that Georgetown is not going to win a game in the Big East. What would you have said? You'd have been like,
no chance. If they, by the way, but keep an eye on Georgetown tonight. They are only 2.5-point underdogs to a DePaul team that is also trash, but I believe the game is in DC.
Well, there you go. Maybe they'll crack through. I mean,
maybe.
Those things, like if they were what we thought they'd be, you'd have another Q1 against Florida State. So on paper, you'd have that because it was a Q1 when you got it. But then it would just also be a human element to that. Damn, Florida State's one of they were projected to be one of the top 3 teams in the league. ACC, yeah, they beat Florida State on a new floor. Georgetown, look, Georgetown's not what they used to be, but that's a predictable win. None of that's happened.
No, I mean, it won't be that. We just went through the schedule and compared it to Oklahoma and why Oklahoma at the moment is viewed higher than South Carolina. It's more that, but all of that can change in literally these last 3 games. That narrative can shift if you win 2 of them, and well, if it's not both Alabama, Auburn, one of them, and Missouri. The whole thing changes because then everything looks better. It really changes if you just win all of them. Yeah, well, that would work.
Hey, good night for State Hoops last night. Props to the Citadel for taking down Wofford. A big win for the Dogs. Or Mercer. Yeah, Wofford. Gold Jacket. Mercer. Dogs have had a nice year. Duggar Balcom is one of the more respectable people that you could ever want to meet in your life. Good for him and good for the Citadel. Great win for them. And Clemson got a huge win last night. Not going to help them at this point in time. They're going to need more of those. They're still under 500 on the year, but it was an enormous win, an 11-point victory over Wake Forest up there in Clemson. So an 80-69 win dropped the Demon Deacons to 21-8, 11-7 in the league. And it got Clemson just their 5th win of the year in the ACC, their 13th overall, but it was nonetheless huge. And I know Brad Brownell is hoping that will kind of parlay itself into some momentum going into the rest of the year and certainly into the ACC tournament to try to make some noise and maybe try to squeak out an NIT bid because at this point in time, they don't even qualify for the postseason with a losing record. So they're going to need to keep winning games. So, but it was a big win. So maybe it's a starting point for Clemson.
One of the most surprising things that happened last night. I'm trying to
What was the line on the game?
It ended up, here's one of the reasons why I say that. It ended up at 3. It opened at about 1. And I talked about the betting market. Everyone was in on Wake, jumped in on Wake, and pushed that line all the way up to 3. So this was good for Vegas. But it was one of the more surprising results of the night. Wake's one of the best teams in the ACC. They're hot. They're coming off the game against Notre Dame. Yeah, but Vegas told you from the outset, right? It's only a 1-point line. It stunk. That line was raising some eyebrows. Everyone jumped in, and Clemson won the game. It's funny what they know sometimes.
It sure is something. How about Notre Dame's athletic department, by the way, right now? I mean, look at what they're doing. They're second in the league in basketball. We all know what their football program is, and their baseball team's one of the top 10 in the country. Pretty impressive stuff up there in South Bend. All right, David Shelton is waiting patiently. We'll get to Providence and Xavier coming up in hour number 2. Is that Darren? I really want to get you thought. It was an unbelievable game, and when the leaks were coming through, I was like, dude, they're not going to be able to finish this, but they did. And Providence was able to squeak it out at home. By the way, anybody that doesn't realize it, Justin Minaya starts for the Friars, former Gamecock forward, and he's one of the integral pieces of their turnaround this year. So it was neat to see him on the floor last night. But speaking of hoops, David Shelton is up next right here on the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed a new loan, subject to lender approval.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work. And 2 others you probably don't think much about, stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
Motley Rice LLC is a law firm with international reach, but it hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for people harmed by products including asbestos and talc exposure, medical drugs and devices, and also catastrophic injuries and auto recalls, including dangerous Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. Visit motleyrice.com. Thank you, Motley Rice, for supporting the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
What's up, everybody? This is South Carolina singer-songwriter Patrick Davis, and I might live in Nashville, Tennessee now, but guess what? I can always keep up with the news back in South Carolina because I've got the JB and Goldwater Show. Thank you, JB and Darren, for being live, loud, and online.
You're welcome, Patrick. He's going to join us next week, as a matter of fact, for anybody interested. And he will be in the Low Country in May out at the Windjammer on a Sunday afternoon on the Sunset stage. So certainly looking forward to our dear buddy, PD. This is David Shelton. He's always in the Low Country. Sports reporter, writer, and everything in between for the Post and Courier. And he is kind enough to pop in on a beautiful Thursday afternoon. What's up, brother?
Man, I got to tell you, my heating and air system is giving me a WTF today because it is beautiful. The air has to kick on. It's been the heat for months. Now the air kicks on, and I see on Monday it's going to be back down in the 50s. So now the heat's going. I mean, my heat and air conditioner is like, what is going on, dude? Figure it out. But we're going to figure it out. But it is beautiful today. I mean, I'm not going to complain, but when your heater is set to come on and it's 85 degrees, it gets real warm. So you got to make sure you change the dial, so to speak.
Your system is like my allergies. Like it doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah. I woke up this morning with a sore throat, sniffling, and I'm like, oh, come on. I got to make a speech here in front of 500 kids at 2:30. So I'm pumping lozenges and menthol, and I feel better. But it ain't it's a simple time. The late February, March is definitely a weird time.
Yeah. Is that at Berkeley today? Did I see that?
That is at Berkeley. That is at the home of the Stags.
Home of the Stags.
And I'm going to speak at 2:45 to their athletic body, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's kind of special because that's my alma mater, and I've been to a lot of games there over the last 34 years as a sports writer covering the games as a neutral observer. And but it's going to be nice to go speak to them. I'm piling up the speaking. I'm doing your alma mater on Monday night. Wando.
Oh, nice, good,
so,
good.
Yeah, 5:45, I think it is, or 5:30, somewhere in there. I'm going to be speaking to their athletes, and then in April, I'm going to be speaking to the entire student body at Wando. And which I guess we'll be doing these in the football stadium because that's a lot. That's a lot of people, but I'm getting my message out, and I appreciate all you guys' help. And I'm just, it's not that I'm having fun doing this, but I feel like I'm having an effect. So this is something that's obviously very important.
Well, you can always use our platform for anything you want to say. You know that. So we love talking sports with you, but we certainly. You know, I don't have to say anymore. You know what it means. Well, speaking of sports, David, real quick before I do want to get to some basketball with you, but I also want to get this out. This was in my inbox before we came on the air, and I did not get it out in the first segment here, Darren. But the 2021 South Carolina Football Hall of Fame class has been announced. Remember last year, it got kind of thrown off with everything, and it's always a good man. This is such a proud state in football. But Clemson's Jeff Bostic. How about Peter Boulware from Columbia, who went down and played at Florida State for Coach Bowden? Dwayne Harper from Orangeburg played at South Carolina State University back in the 80s. Chester McLaughlin, he is a legacy member, but played at Clemson University. And Rick Sanford, former South Carolina football player, first-team All-American, first-round draft pick ever in Gamecock history. That is this year's Hall of Fame class, and David, I know that you know who every one of those guys is. That's a pretty good class.
Yeah, I had not seen the list, and I got to admit, I am shocked that it took this long for Rick Sanford to get in. I when you said his name, I was like, no, certainly he's in by now. Like all the things you just said about him. That one shocks me. Not that he's in it, but that he's not already in it. Was an outstanding football player at South Carolina, and then played in the NFL. Chester McLaughlin, same thing. Dwayne Harper at SC State, same thing. Played in the NFL. Peter Boulware was a terror in high school. I covered him, and he went to Florida State during that Bobby Bowden, when Florida State was just raiding South Carolina. All the good players back in that day, Chad Bates was a Spring Valley guy that went. Kevin Long from Somerville, offensive lineman, he went to Florida State. I mean, that was the time when Bobby Bowden and Brad Scott was his recruiting coordinator with Ronnie Cottrell, and they were just picking and choosing who they wanted out of South Carolina. Fortunately, we seem to have slammed that door just a bit. Still, we can lose some every now and then, but yeah, Peter Boulware was in that group that South Carolina and Clemson just had no shot to get.
Yeah, there were days, David, you remember much better than I do, but Florida State, Tennessee, they came in here, and those two specifically, I know North Carolina State and North Carolina teams like that, but Florida State and Tennessee, I felt like I always had these superstars. And you're like, where from? Oh, Columbia. Shocker. Orangeburg or Florence. Recent addition to the NFL Hall of Fame, Richard Seymour, right there in Columbia, Lower Richland, went to Georgia. I want to say that was
Sparky Woods was the coach at South Carolina when he came through. It might have been, no, it was not Morrison. It had to be Sparky. But what a great player that guy was. And when you can look back, and I've done this, on occasion, just looked back at some of the guys that left the state that if they had went to Clemson or South Carolina, primarily South Carolina, because there were a lot right there in the Midlands, just how different the fortunes may have been. Some did stay, and some low country guys went to those two schools, Holland Postel, Hank Campbell. I mean, there were some guys, but man, just what if you had sealed the borders? Like for instance, if a lot of those guys that we've been talking about had come through right now, with what Clemson has done and with the increased confidence, I guess you would say, right now at South Carolina, I just think it would be a different story. But back then, it was not, you're talking about Ken Hatfield, Tommy West days. I love both of them. Not a problem with them. But you go Sparky Woods, Brad Scott, that the programs just weren't where they are right now. So it would have been interesting to see had those Peter Boulwares and guys that went to Tennessee and Richard Seymour, had they come along right now, if they would have given the in-state schools a better look.
I totally agree. Yeah, those guys I don't think would be getting out now, but they certainly did then.
They wouldn't be going to Florida State right now.
No.
No.
Nah.
Pretty much sure of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wouldn't be going there. All right, David, let's go to basketball. The Florence Civic Center will host Dutch Fork and Fort Dorchester on Saturday night. Malden and Ridgeview will play at Bob Jones University on Saturday night. And I think everybody knows what's in that Ridgeview Malden game. Gigi Jackson, who at this point in time is largely considering South Carolina and Duke. I understand maybe North Carolina is still a little bit in the mix, but it's going to be a Duke and South Carolina battle to get him. But first he's got to play in a semifinal game Saturday evening. And then at Fort Dorchester, it's amazing. I mean, here they are, man. This is a basketball program. I feel like it's got some a resurgence about it, David, and they got a chance to play for a state championship.
Yeah, I mean, the last 3 years they've only lost 6 games in the last 3 seasons. Last year they were undefeated going into the playoffs, got beat in the first round. Granted, they only played 9 games because of COVID.
Right.
But they were 9-0 and lost in the first round. This year they've lost 1 game. That was to Riverside in a tournament during the holidays, and Riverside was one of the top 3 or 4 teams all season until they got beat by Malden. Or it might have been Ridgeview. I can't remember which one beat them, but Fort Dorchester's had a really, really good year, and I think they're 24-1 now. They're going to have their hands full with Dutch Fork. That's a pretty dang good basketball team out of the Midlands. And typically, in these matchups, the Midlands teams win over the low country type teams. But I think Fort's, I mean, they beat a Midlands team, River Bluff, in the first round. They beat a Midlands team the other night, Lexington, albeit that other night was really touch and go. They didn't play great, but they played well enough to win. They just have so much depth. They run so much pressure, and they run a lot of guys on the floor. Dutch Fork's probably a better shooting team overall. But I think the Patriots got a shot. I mean, they've never been to the state finals in basketball. It's been a quote unquote football school for the last decade or so. But this basketball team's got a lot of football players on it. I mean, when you look at the guys that are doing a lot of the stuff, they're football guys. So we'll see. I mean, I think they've got a shot, but I really think the winner of the upper state, whether it be Malden or Ridgeview, is probably the favorite to win the state title.
Yeah.
But you got to get there before you can win it. So you got to win Saturday, and I think Fort Dorchester's, they got a shot.
I'll say this about Fort. I haven't seen a lot of the teams in the area. I saw them play. I saw them play against Goose Creek and talked with McKelvey, their coach. I mean, they're super athletic. They are deep. Like you said, they don't shoot it particularly well, but he's got 10, 15 guys that he's just like cycling through. I mean, it's guys, they don't have much drop off when these guys come in. Super
and that's
athletic.
why they win.
Yeah,
because they pressure defense, and they just run guys in that can fresh legs, that they're all hands. They knock balls away. They deflect balls. They just frustrate the other team so much. And some high school teams, when you play that style, when you go to the bench, you maybe back down into the zone, or try to just steal some minutes. Not them guys.
No.
I mean, whatever guys are coming in the game, they're coming in to play that pressure defense, and they create a lot of turnovers. They make it very difficult to get off a good shot. Now they get burned some. I mean, Lexington burned them a few times with the long ball. They threw the ball way down the court and got behind the defense, kind of thing. But if they keep you, if you can't get behind them, if they keep you in front, you're going to have to make a very tough shot. I mean, that's just the way it is. You make it, great, you're a better player, but it's going to be a tough shot. There's no question about it.
David Shelton, 12:50 Thursday afternoon. How about the ladies' side at the 5A level? Somerville, Sumter in Florence, Malden and Rock Hill are in the upstate in that semifinal matchup. But the Green Wave and the Gamecocks will go at it on Saturday as well.
Yeah, they played earlier. They played in December, and Sumter beat them by 30. And but Somerville didn't have all their players. They've had some COVID issues. They had a concussion to their post player, who's a Carolina's All-Star, Jasmine Grant. She missed quite a few games during that time in December. Just wasn't ready to come back. And then they lost one of their better guards to COVID. So they kind of I don't want to say struggled through the regular season, because they won their first 8, then they lost 5, and then they would win, loss, but they've won 7 in a row. And I saw them play Cane Bay the other night, and Cane Bay is a really good team. Somerville was on point. They make free throws. Well, they did the other night. I saw them make 9 straight at one point, and I'm not trying to be sexist, but you don't see girls basketball teams make 9 straight free throws. That's very rare. But they did, and that kept Cane Bay at bay, so to speak. Calvin Davis is a really good coach, and he told me the other night, he said, we're healthy, and we knew we would be this. We knew we would be here if we got healthy, because they have talent. And he thinks, now Sumter's really good. They're the defending lower state champions, and they're always in the mix. But he thinks, he just said it's not going to be 30 points this time. We're going to be a better team than we were in December, and they will be. And they look good the other night. They're peaking right now. But Sumter is Sumter, and Sumter is good. They got 2 all-state players. Somerville doesn't have an all-state player. In my mind, they do have all-state talent, but the girls miss so much time. You probably, you don't get that nod when you pick all-state. But certainly they're 2 of the better, Polite and Grant are 2 of the better team players in the Low Country. So, with having them at full strength, they got a shot. I don't think they'll be favored, and I don't think it'll be a 30-point game. But the one thing about playing in these big arenas, the Florence Civic Centers and the Carolina, the Colonial Life Center, and USC Aiken is a smaller venue, but still the same type venue, is the shooting is usually not good. Because of the depth perception, when you're in a high school gym, you got the wall behind it's just different. So I think that comes down to, you got to make layups. When you get a layup, you got to put it in. When you get a ball inside the paint, inside 6 feet, you got to put it in. And that's where Cane Bay kind of didn't do it the other night against Somerville. I mean, they can definitely play with Somerville, but they missed a lot of bunnies. And when you get in the Florence Civic Center, those bunnies are going to be crucial. You'll make some jump shots, but it's just different because these kids don't play in those type of arenas during the season. So it's definitely different, and it makes you just have every shot, and definitely every free throw, and definitely every ball in the paint you got to convert. And that's boys and girls. I'm not just talking about girls. That it's just different. It's a different venue.
That's a great point. Great point, David. The 4A level on the men's side tonight, there's 4 games across the state in the quarterfinals. You got Irmo and Travelers Rest. Wilson is hosting Midland Valley. You got South Point hosting AC Flora, and North Augusta will host West Florence. What stands out amongst those four? I think we've had a couple of questions in the Share Healthcare chat lines about West Lawrence and North Augusta. I'm not sure what you know about that game and that matchup, but what stands out amongst four ball games?
Well, I honestly, I think the best teams are in the upper state bracket. I really would be surprised if an AC Flora or South Point or Irmo did not win the state title. They're three really good teams. South Point coached by Melvin Watson, former Gamecock, former Burke star. The lower states, there's some teams that they're talented, but there's just not a lot of people don't know a lot about them because of the team in the upper state got all the quote unquote publicity during the season. But that Wilson team's athletic. They're always a contender. Midland Valley won a state title a couple years ago out of the Aiken area. So they're going to be in the hunt. I don't really have a feel for how that's going to pan out in the end. But I honestly think one of those upper state teams is probably got the best shot to win a state title.
How about at the 3A level on the boys' side? You got Oceanside taking on Orangeburg Wilkinson coming in a couple of days. Blue Ridge has got Keenan. How about OCA, man?
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting matchup. OW has been very, very good all year long. And Oceanside, lost a game here or there, been in the bottom of the top 10 in the statewide rankings, dropped out, came back in. Maki Rivers is a really good player. I think OW would be, if there were a line, so to speak, I think they would be a favorite. They've been one of the top 1 or 2, 3 teams in 3A all season. Very athletic. They can shoot the basketball. They play pressure defense. But OCA, I think if people are sleeping on OCA, they better wake up because all they've done is win down the stretch, and it may not look pretty sometimes, but they're very confident right now. And this is, in my opinion, this isn't their best team in the last 2 or 3 years. I think a couple years ago they were better overall, but this is maybe just a better team. They just play better together. They had some talent a couple years ago and didn't quite get to this far. So, I think they got a shot. Like I said, I don't think they'd be favored, but I definitely don't think, OW will just roll them in that game on when is that going to be? Monday night, which is really weird because now the title games, the lower state and upper state are Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, and then you go to the finals the next week at USC Aiken. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's no more 1 day, all day hoops because I guess the COVID thing and the attendance thing. You don't. Maybe these smaller arenas, they can't quite handle what they used to. Because, the upper state used to be at the Bilo Center, right. I don't know what they seat, 12, 15,000 or more. Now it's at Bob Jones University, which is definitely a smaller venue, pretty nice venue, for Bob Jones or for that level. It's pretty nice. USC Aiken's a nice venue, but it's smaller. So they got to separate these games. It makes it a little, it's not as fun. It's hard to keep up with. Like who's playing Monday, who's playing Saturday, who's playing Tuesday. It's really kind of, you got to keep going to the internet and looking at the brackets. I've done it all week. But I'm going to be there Saturday because, the Military Magnet girls will be there and Somerville and Fort will be there. So I'll be there definitely on Saturday and won't be there Monday because of the speaking thing, but may have to go back on Tuesday.
Tonight, too, David, you got 4 games at the 2A level on the men's side. Abbeville and Gray Collegiate, Wade Hampton and Mullins, Landrum and Andrew Jackson, and Philip Simmons taking on York. Philip Simmons blew the doors off Latta just a few days ago, and now they've got York tonight at 6 o'clock. And you got Philip Simmons, you got OCA, Wando E. You're like, damn, can't these kids be hanging out over at our school? But here they are late in the postseason. Philip Simmons' chances tonight.
Yeah, I love this team. Like I love the way they play. I love the way they coached. They're very, very solid basketball team. But that York Prep, it's a prep school, and they're good. They're really good. I think I might have misread this, but I'm pretty sure they just hit like some national top 25 or something.
Yeah, I saw
something on Twitter. But this is, on the road. That's a long haul against a really good team. Clearly, I mean, they're going to be the best team that Phillip Simmons has played all year. But man, God, it's just going to be a hard one. I don't discount them. I said earlier in the week, I was like, man, if they're shooting the three like they shoot it, that can keep you in a game. But I think York Prep's going to have more talent. But we'll see. I mean, I think it's going to be a hard haul. And in the lower state, you also got Wade Hampton, which is they went to the state finals last year. They're a perennial contender. So I think they're going to beat Mullins and that York Prep, which okay, I'll get off track for just a second.
No,
why the hell is York Prep in the lower state? I mean, hello, do we know where York is? Like York is like near Charlotte. Like York is way up there. But I know how they do it because you got so many teams in the lower state and not enough in the lower state, and there's more in the upper state, so they got to reseed somebody down. But it's really not. I mean, it's not fair. I mean, Phillip Simmons down here off Clemson Ferry Road's got to travel all the way to York to play a basketball game in the lower state bracket. I mean, we have some of that in football, but I mean, I honestly forgot that York Prep was in the lower state bracket. I did not. I mean, I was looking. I was like, man, Phillip Simmons, Wade Hampton, that's going to be a barn burner. And then somebody mentioned to me the other day, like, no, they got to go to York Prep. I'm like, how did that happen? But whatever. I'm not in charge, and neither are you. So
no,
it just doesn't. To me, it's not fair, and to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like Phillip Simmons girls yesterday, they lost. No, Timberland girls. Timberland girls had to go to Andrew Jackson, which is above the Midlands. It's in Kershaw, because of the way they have to, put these teams in brackets. That's tough haul. I mean, Andrew Jackson is really good, and if they were in the lower state, they'd probably beat Timberland. But I mean, you just look at it and you just like, I mean, some of these things just don't make a whole lot of sense. But whatever.
There's a lot in high school athletics in the state that doesn't make a lot of sense, David. I think you've been around long enough to know that. Put it on their tab is the way I describe it. All right, we're really short on time. We only got a minute left. BE ladies, military magnet ladies, they're still playing. I think BE plays tonight against Loris at 7:00 up at Loris. But what else stands out to you in high school basketball playoffs, something worth noting here to monitor over the next couple of days?
Yeah, I think BE girls are going to have a tough time tonight at Loris. I think, Military Magnet's going to be in the lower state finals against a very good Lakeview team that just beat East Clarendon, who's got Talasia Cooper, who we all know. Yeah. But I tell you, the one we hadn't touched on, and I'll throw it in real quick, we got some local SCISA teams going to be right around the finals.
I was going to ask you about First Baptist.
Boys.
Yeah.
Yep.
First Baptist boys, who I think might be the best team in the area, them and Ford. I'd love to see them play. I'd like to see that as just a pickup game in somebody's backyard. I mean, that would be fun to watch. But I think they got a shot. Northwood girls got a shot. First Baptist girls got a shot. Cathedral, boys and girls, they both have a real strong chance to win the state titles this weekend. So a lot of good opportunities for these local teams over the next couple of days.
Certainly looking forward to keeping up with it, Dave. We're glad we got to catch up with you, and we'll catch up with you again next week, get an update on everything that's happening out there. But for all of you, we got a ton of comments here. This is awesome. In our Share Healthcare chat lines, everybody's pulling for their hometown teams, and so we wish you all the best of luck. Not everybody's going to win, but we wish you all luck. And you can certainly follow David on social media at dshelton66. I know you'll be covering games this weekend, as you mentioned. PostandCourier.com is where you can read more about it. The high school league has the brackets up, schsl.com or .org. schsl.org to follow along with the high school basketball brackets. David, we'll let you run on that note. Great to hear from you. We'll do it again next week. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And I hope today when you address the students out there at Berkeley High School, I hope it makes the impact that you want it to make. I know that it will.
I hope so too. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, David. There you go. David Shelton with the Post and Courier. All right, we got to hit a timeout. When we return, Derek Scott called the win last night, the 4th straight win for Gamecock basketball. He'll call Saturday's game as well. As you know, he's the voice of the Gamecocks, and he'll join us when we return. Right here in our backyard is Motley Rice LLC, a law firm that hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for South Carolinians who were injured while traveling by plane or bus, harmed by medical drugs and devices, or burdened by dangerous auto recalls, including Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. We are honored to have Motley Rice as a sponsor for the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work, and to others you probably don't think much about. Stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf team. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the national anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
Okay, final hour on a beautiful Thursday afternoon. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show. Very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Cause not just cases, motleyrice.com. Scott Glaze is going to get us filled in on the Phil Mickelson drama coming up at the end of the hour. Thanks to David Shelton for joining us in that last segment. But quick plug for us here, because we have, as you all know, the JB and Goldwater app. If you want to follow along with the scores of the high school basketball games, make sure the app is downloaded. We have a link on there that says high school scoreboard. Just click it, and there's your scoreboard. It is updated consistently from ScoreStream, so you can do that by make sure that you got the app. We know what the score was last night in Columbia. Gamecocks beat Mississippi State. Derek Scott called the game. Generally, we get to his face, but he's traveling today. You'll hear his voice again Saturday as they go for 5 straight in Tuscaloosa. But he joins us now to tell us what happened and what happens in the future. Hey, Derek.
What's up, fellas?
Well, you know, this weekly thing's starting to work out for us around here. Maybe it's a good luck charm. They've won 4 in a row.
All right. First off, because I am an audio guy, I've got you Bluetooth right now, and I hate to do this on the air for the listeners, but is the sound good enough, or do I need to pick up the handset? Because I'm a committed guy when it comes to good audio. You tell me what you want.
It sounds perfect, man.
You're good.
Okay. All right. I worry about these things.
I that's fair. I do too. I'm pretty anal about that stuff. You're good.
Nope, you're perfect.
Hey, Darren, you and I probably were old enough, I know I am, to have that conversation with guests back in the day where I'd say, no, I don't want you on a cell phone. Yeah. Find a landline.
Yes.
And that actually used to be an option, and not anymore.
No, not anymore. You're dead on there, Derek. Well, it didn't sound like it didn't sound to me, at least, like you were calling the game from a cell phone last night or Bluetooth. It sounded good.
No. We were good. Casey was in fine form, and everything was copacetic, and more importantly, it was all really good for 40 minutes for Frank Martin's team. I said on social media, I thought that was the best half of basketball they've played all season. That first half, and they did not backslide terribly in the second half. You knew you couldn't sustain it at that level. Nobody does that for 40 minutes. And it was just ironic because it was almost like we gave Mississippi State a dose of the medicine that they gave to us in Starkville a few weeks back. They played an unbelievable first half offensively, just as efficient as they could be, and then, kind of glided in on the strength of that over the final 20, and the Gamecocks, lo and behold, did something pretty similar.
Absolutely. I mean, they totally flipped the script. They out-rebounded them. They, like you said, from start to finish, it was South Carolina's game. And once again, Jermaine Cousinard was special. 55 combined points, Derek, in the last 2 games for Jermaine Cousinard. What's gotten into him?
Well, I tell you, it's great to see, and I don't know exactly what to pin it on. I mean, it is clear that, Frank talks about being at peace. I don't know how much of that in this instance holds true as far as the young man and what he's dealt with off the court. But there's no question his focus is there. His confidence is back. And I don't think you really can underestimate how important or overestimate how important that is for any ball player. And, he and Keyshawn both seem to have found whatever they needed to click to play at a level of energy and freedom that they both need to for this team to be really successful. And man, oh man, it's like, this is what this team was capable of if you got that kind of effort from all of them, all the veterans. And now you're getting it. And so it takes so much pressure off of Eric Stevenson and James Reese to be getting that support.
When teams go through winning streaks, and it's you can feel it more as an announcer in basketball because you can be on the road with them at times and you're around them more as a group. And when things like this happen, everything changes. How much has it changed? How different is it now than 2 weeks ago when this whole group is together off the floor?
It's funny you say that because I don't see a huge difference. These guys were working hard. I just think it builds on itself. There's no gaps. There's been no hiccups. You've had no, significant absences. And so with everybody staying together and working together, and now with, those veterans playing much better basketball, it just feels like it's all, coming along at a pace that you'd want it to. You wish it would have gotten there sooner, but you have to be pleased it's happening now. And then the final piece of that is the coaches now with this really new roster have got pieces from a lot of different places.
I think the coaches really have a very good feel for what this team is comfortable doing, what it's not comfortable doing, things to stay away from. And you see it. I mean, what Frank did last night, the confidence he showed in his guys to make the change he made. And I don't think this has gotten nearly enough attention because it's kind of in the weeds. Mm-hmm. But knowing what Mississippi State has done to us for the last 3 games, twice last year and then the earlier game this year, offensively, that set that they run that's kind of like a wheel, where they get Molinar off of 2 screens where he's getting downhill, and I mean, he's coming with a head of steam, and your big is just stuck because you got to stop him. But the minute you move to him, the big that was your responsibility is now at the rim, and Molinar is so clean with his deliveries, and he still managed to do it a handful of times last night to set up Tolu Smith for dunks. But Frank made a defensive change. He knew that was the key to this whole thing as far as how to guard this team. We've got to take away that particular set. So much of their offense in the half court comes out of that set. And he worked through it for a couple days and had the guys, basically he gave them a key that if they're going to run this set, this is the first pass. This is where it starts. And the minute that they throw that pass, I need all 5 of you to recognize it, and I need you immediately to switch from man-to-man to zone. And that's what they did. And from if you go back and watch the film, the first possession of the game, they did that. That first pass, when Molinar gives up the ball to the wing, our guys went from man to zone in the middle of the possession, and it just was like throwing a wrench into the gears of Mississippi State's offense. And they never figured it out all night long. And it was the key to slowing them down. And of course, when you have a defensive efficiency number as good as South Carolina had last night, you know you're doing something right. That was it. And I don't know how much earlier in the season Frank would have believed his team, all 5 guys on the court at the same time, would understand what they needed to do, and they'd all do it. Because all it takes is one guy not getting it and staying in man-to-man, and now you got a problem. And they were flawless last night in their defensive execution off of that one move, and I just think that's a sign of supreme confidence in his team, that he was willing to roll the dice on that, and it worked really well.
That is a fascinating backstory and incredible detail because that's what I'm interested in. And, I like the details. That's kind of, those are my follow-up questions have to do with that. Kind of what you just led into there is, at what point in time, did he start to feel comfortable? I mean, he has kind of trimmed the roster a little bit, guys, and how many minutes they're getting and things of that nature for whatever reasons they may be specific to those players. But I mean, clearly Devin Carter has grown up. Taquan Woodley has grown up. So it's really incredible to look at this and see you've watched this team grow up. And it's like, okay, Frank understands, hey, they're alive now. All right, now we can do these things. And here they are. So that leads me to this question. Sometimes, Derek, teams just get hot. Has South Carolina just gotten hot, or have they turned a corner?
Well, I think they've turned a corner. I'm biased, but I definitely think they've turned a corner. Getting hot would imply that we're just shooting it at an amazing rate, and that's not necessarily the case.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, second half last night, you're sitting on 40% from the field, and nothing wrong with what they did offensively because Mississippi State's got a ton of length, and they're a good defensive team. But, no, I don't think it's just a team on a hot streak. I just think it's a team that's really executing well and has figured out what they do well. And really focusing on that. And he's made some slight adjustments to the offense as well, especially for Devin and for Jermaine, to space things out in a way that the driving lanes are there for them. I think he's got enough confidence in both of them now to feel like, okay, if I run things where you guys are being led to drive and kick, that this is going to work, and you're not going to turn the ball over like you were doing early in the season. He wouldn't have been able to do that earlier because they both were just coughing it up way too much. Devin Carter last night was a wizard. He distributed so well when he had the ball in his hands. I mean, 5 assists and 1 turnover for a guy who was never a point guard until basically the middle of this season. That's really impressive. And the way the numbers have been trending lately, that's been where he's been there more often than not.
Has Frank?
And so they're creating more opportunities for him to work off the bounce and not even so much originally it was let's get him off the bounce so he can score. Now it's let's get him off the bounce so he can score or set somebody else up, and he's doing a lot more of the latter now.
Has Frank Martin made more adjustments this year? Maybe you can, I saw you on Twitter ask for questions for Carolina calls tonight. Maybe you can ask in this one. More adjustments this year, maybe even in this last stretch, than other segments of years in his career? Because these games, these last few, they've all played out differently, right? I mean, the Kentucky thing is this wild affair going back and forth, and somehow you're able to not play particularly well, but beat LSU. Then you put stuff together here, and you just mentioned the adjustments against Mississippi State. Has there been more in this stretch than over any stretch or comparatively in his career?
Well, I'm sorry, sir. You're going to need to tweet that using the hashtag Carolina Calls, and we'll put that on the internet. I think it's a great question, and I will absolutely intend to ask it tonight because there are things that he's done, and that's not to say that he didn't do similar things in other years, but boy, I think they've stood out this year, you know, whether it be the willingness to accept the 2-3 zone as something other than, you know, cough syrup to have to swallow. I mean, that's significant for Frank. He hates zones, and he accepted this one, and it has become a bigger part of the defense than anyone could have ever imagined. And using guys deciding, I've got to put the ball in Devin's hands and figure out if he can play the point because we're just not getting enough explosive offense out of the guys we've got out there at these points in times. Even early in the year with his own son, you know, Brandon came in saying, okay, we both know, Dad, I'm too small to play the 4 in the SEC. So I got to learn to play the 3, and I need you to give me the opportunity. And Frank says, that's fine. You know, we'll take a run at that. And then by the 3 games in, it's like, okay, hey, guess what? We need help at the 4. AJ's not here. Keyshawn's not here. We're playing Josh Gray at the 4, and he's 7 feet tall. This isn't working. I need you to opt back there. And he's never left. And he's played really well. And last night played as well as I think I've seen him. Brandon Martin was in the middle of so many good things last night. He was plus 13 in plus minus. He was really, really good. And he's your leading rebounder against a team that rebounds the heck out of the basketball in spite of not being, you know, bigger than probably 6'5". So no, I think there's a lot of pieces, moves and adjustments Frank's made that have really been, you know, impressive. Hasn't solved all the problems, but it's really made this team better than it was early. And I will definitely try and ask that of him tonight.
I'll try and tweet it to you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, they outboarded him by 9, and Brandon had 7 of the 38 for South Carolina. Gamecocks also of the 38 rebounds they captured had 15 of those on the offensive side. So it was a great night for Carolina getting off the backboard and off the rim. Derek, I maybe you can ask this one as well, and I'm being I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'm being funny or not. I feel like this is a fake question, but it's real. I mean, Wildens Levesque hasn't taken a shot in 2 games. Is he being told not to shoot, or is he just not shooting?
No.
Okay.
No, his head is just a mess right now. And I love Wildens' death. He is a sweetheart of a kid, and he works hard, and he's a team player. But right now, his confidence is at such a low ebb. And I mean, you know, he got a couple of those fouls last night where I'm not saying they weren't fouls. I thought they were. I heard somebody else earlier today on radio complaining that they thought a couple of his first 3 were not good calls. I didn't see anything called on him that I didn't think was valid. But I just, they're not fouls where he's trying to make a play. They are reactive fouls, and it just shows you he's thinking so much instead of playing. And, you know, he wasn't doing that in November and December. And he's just, right now, he's just not giving this team much at all, and that's why they're so fortunate that Taekwon has stepped up and that AJ is seeming more comfortable with his role. And going back to your point about the offensive rebounds, Gamecocks got offensive rebounds on 47% of their misses last night. That is stout against a team as good as Mississippi State is on the glass.
You know, that is incredible. I think something that's very telling to me, Derek, is this stat right here. It's a combo stat of minutes played between Jermaine Keyshawn, James Reese, and Eric Stevenson. And coming into the season, this was my thought process. I think I'd spoken to you about this and numerous others who had intently watched this team prepare for the 21-22 year. And those were the 4 guys that those names kept coming up. They're going to need to play well in order for South Carolina to play well. They're older guys. They've been around the block, all those reasons that are out there. Last night, Jermaine, 30 minutes, Keyshawn, 31, James Reese, 32, Eric, 30. That to me says, okay, Frank Martin feels very comfortable with his core group of guys, elder statesmen here. They've earned their minutes, and they're going to go out there, and they're going to be he's going to spell them here and there, and he's going to mix and match, and Devin's going to get his, and Wildens, and Taquan Woodley. But those four guys, if they're getting after it every night, Carolina's going to probably have a pretty good shot at getting it done.
Yeah, I agree. He people kept asking, when are you going to shorten the rotation? And he just kept saying, what are you talking about? As long as guys are playing well, I'm going to keep playing them. Well, that was his answer in any minute. So when guys started not playing well and started not showing the commitment day to day in practice that everybody else was showing, well, that took care of itself. And there are some guys that have fallen off that loop right now, and they can get back on it. And there's no question he's not closed the door on their participation. It's just, you got to show it to me. And Frank's like that. You better prove it on Thursday and Friday if you want to see the court on Saturday. And so I think there's some guys that could still bubble back up, but that definitely is part of it. And the veterans are the ones that he is getting it from every single day in practice. And that's no surprise, because those guys are businesslike in their approach. And that's what Reese and Stevenson brought to this roster was just the daily way they go about their business and the way they understand exactly where Frank's coming from. And it rarely, if ever, is a moment where you see them just catching the wrath, because the wrath usually comes from just not doing what he has made clear he wants you to do.
It's so. I saw Eric last night had a couple of kind of goofy, unforced errors out there, a couple of turnovers that, and I'm just watching on TV, Derek, but you see him walk by Frank. They don't even have to speak to each other. Eric knew, Frank knew. That was it. And that just.
Well, and there was honestly, JB, there were a couple of those that, he gets the turnover, but where he threw the ball is where somebody should have been.
Okay.
I remember there was one long pass that Keyshawn, who we all want to see running towards the rim at all times, flared out towards the corner, like, hey, give it to me and I'll shoot a three, as opposed to give it to me and I'll tear the rim down. and so Eric had thrown it to the rim, and Keyshawn veered away from the rim. And so that's a Stevenson turnover, but that is not on Stevenson. And it happened to him at least twice, maybe three times, I felt like, last night.
Well, I know you called the Keyshawn dunk. What were you prepared to say if Devin would have hammered that one home from about the free throw line?
I'd say gibberish, because that one came up like when you're in the ocean, you're just catching some waves, and there's one you see coming and you kind of jump up so it doesn't end up in your face. But then there's one you don't see coming, and it just slaps you across the back. You're like, geez, what was that?
Yep.
Well, that was where Devin's dunk was headed, because I thought he was just trying to finish in traffic, and instead he hopped on the pogo stick and was up there, felt like eye level at the rim. And that was going to be a house bring down sort of dunk if he could have finished it. Unfortunately, he banged it out to the 3-point line like it was a pass, and the Gamecocks kept the possession alive. But still, no, that was going to be an eyebrow raiser for sure.
I had the game on the on the second TV. I had the daughter watching something on TV, whatever she's watching. As that was unfolding, my reaction was loud, and then she pays attention. What do you mean he missed? I was like, yeah, but you missed the whole thing. Don't look at the ball over there. I reacted to him like flying. It was impressive.
Well, and he hammered the one home at halftime. I mean, as time expired, he's playing confidently. So is Woodley. These freshmen, Derek, I hope that they don't become what I would call victims to the transfer portal for this program. They got a chance to be really good. And it's like they're not freshmen anymore. They've started to figure it out.
Right. And TQ missed so much valuable time when he was home for the birth of his daughter. And Frank pointed that out last night on our post game. He said, that last 3-game losing streak, who wasn't really a part of those games? He goes, when we had no answers under the basket for these guys in Starkville, TQ wasn't there. And when we came home and lost to Tennessee and Kentucky, TQ wasn't there. And he goes, don't think for a minute that wouldn't have made a difference against those three teams with their physicality and their size, the way he had been playing. And then to get him back, it took a while to get him ramped back up to speed, because when you're gone for a week of practice and games and you're only a freshman and he had no senior season due to COVID, he fell way behind, and he's found it again. He's caught up again, and he's a difference maker. His first half last night I thought was as key to the win as anything, because when Wilden's got that second early personal, oh my, I was like, here we go again. 5 minutes in, he's on the bench for the last 15. What are we going to do with Garrison Brooks and Tolu Smith? And Taekwon just took over. I mean, 6 points, 3 rebounds, 3 block shots in 10 minutes of the first half. And he was just a real force around the rim. They let him play. He was, sometimes he's physical enough that he's going to get quick whistles. I thought the officials really let him go last night, and that was very beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, when we talked to Frank back a couple months ago, Darren, you remember I think the third question we asked him?
Uh-huh.
Why was Taekwon Woodley your first player off the bench this season after they had played one game? He was the first player who did start off the bench of the whole year. I think we're starting to see why. All right, they've won 4 in a row. All right, now we know what the test is at Alabama, Derek. They traditionally struggle at Coleman Coliseum. It really doesn't matter if Alabama's any good or not. This year they are good, and they're really good at home. For whatever reason, the place has been a house of horrors for Gamecock basketball over the years. But why could this opportunity be different based on recent success?
Alabama doesn't guard nearly as well as they did last year. And I know part of that's just Herb Jones left. He was Superman at the defensive end. But the reason Alabama is fighting for 5th place this year, and there's not in that conversation with Auburn, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Tennessee for the top 4 seeds, is because they don't guard as well. They're still heavily reliant on the three-pointer, and they can shoot themselves into and out of games as a result of that. When they're on, they can beat anybody. And when you look at their resume and you see the wins they have this year, it will, it'll grab you quickly when you realize, hey, this bunch beat Gonzaga. This bunch beat Houston, and this bunch has, in conference play, beaten Tennessee, and they're entirely capable of competing with anybody. But they also can have nights where they just, against Kentucky the other night, they came out like a house of fire. Kentucky didn't have its starting backcourt. And then, they just ran out of steam, and they gave up 90 points. And that's the problem they've run into a lot. They just can't get stops a lot. And I think, so much of what you get with them is going to be dictated by how they're shooting it, because you're not going to stop them. You're not going to run them. I'll tell you what's not going to happen. There's not going to be another offer from 3-point territory like we saw last night out of Mississippi State. But at the same time, if you can, just run your stuff, that you'll get hoops against them. But to your point, JB, you're right. There's been some silly crap that's happened in Tuscaloosa over the years. 2 years ago, Gamecocks had a similar late season roll going, played well enough to win, led most of the game, and let it get away late against Nate Oates. And I'm always reminded of that when we play Mississippi State, because they got this kid that comes off the bench last night, Javian Davis, who's a backup post player for Mississippi State. And he had a typical Javian Davis game last night, 3 points, 2 rebounds in 9.5 minutes. Somehow, Javian Davis 2 years ago had 20 and 10 against the Gamecocks when he was at Alabama. And that's kind of crap that just seems to happen when we play those guys in their building. It's been nuts for a long time, a lot longer than I've been around. So you just hope you don't have another one of those head scratchers at the end of the night that, makes you want to punch a wall because something nonsensical happened and kept you from, getting over the hump.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right. So Derek, the final question here. I mean, I'm going to get, you know what it is, but for those that don't, Carolina now up 7 spots, 87 in the net, 17 and 10 overall. Lenardi just had his newest stuff out today. They're still not anywhere on the sheet. Are they aware of that? And if so, what type of conversations are being had in that locker room, whether amongst coaches, amongst players, or whatever? Where do they stand on where they are right now in the landscape of college basketball, trying to get into the dance?
I think they're aware, but not really focused on it. I don't think players, I mean, you know what? I'm not 18 to 22. So let me not sit here and act like I have any clue what those guys spend their time together in the locker room thinking about and talking about. I'm guessing it's not Joey brackets. But coaches are aware, but I think they also are at a point of saying, why get upset about something we can't control? And I spent this morning about 30 minutes just stomping around the house. So DC had put out the latest net rankings, and I just immediately opened it up, the NCAA webpage, and started comparing the Gamecocks to the teams generally around them. And then scrolling up to the teams, let's just say 10 spots ahead of them. And you could give me an hour. I can go through and just walk you through how ridiculous it is that you're going to tell me this team or that team is either ranked comparably or ranked ahead of South Carolina when you then start putting the numbers next to it. It is maddening. So much of what's holding South Carolina back is their lack of efficiency. And I love Ken Palm. I take a lot of his analytics and talk about it on the air. But the overall offensive and defensive efficiency numbers, I mean, they are predictive measures. And at this point in the year, instead of saying predictive measures as it relates to South Carolina basketball, you could call them blindfold me and throw a dart on the wall measures, because he misses on every single game with South Carolina. In terms of, if you go through, he projects who's going to win each game. The other night, he was kind of puffing out his chest because he didn't miss a single game on, I think it was Tuesday night. But funny, he misses on South Carolina seemingly 3 out of 4 times. When we started conference play, it was like, geez, he thinks we're going to win like 4 games this year. Mm-hmm. And so we're sitting at 8-7. And that's yet his numbers are fed into the net rankings. That's frustrating, man. I mean, if you just go look at quad 1 and quad 2 records, how many losses do you have in quad 3? Let's talk about how you played on the road. You can line up South Carolina with a bunch of schools that are ahead of them and not for the life of you figure out how they're ahead of them. And that is driving me bonkers right now. I hope it's not impacting the time that the coaches are spending on it, because they got better things to do.
It's also why they're a covering machine right now in Vegas, because all those lines are basically based on Ken. I mean, they're based on Ken Palm.
Yep. He's always comparable, isn't he? I mean, he looks very similar to what Vegas ends up putting out. You're right about that.
Yeah, it's I threw one out there earlier coming into they hadn't had the newest ones out there out today, but as of Tuesday, Oklahoma was on the next 4 out, or the first 4 out. Oklahoma is 14-14, 4-11 in the Big 12, and they were one of his first 4 out. I was just shaking my head. Amazing.
It's like, they've got some quad 1 wins. They've played 15 or 16 quad 1 games. When you have that many more opportunities, I'd like to think you're going to stumble into a few of them. But I mean, that's just one example. It really drives me batty. And I was just basically scrolling the screen and had the Gamecocks at the bottom of my phone, and that gave me about 10 spots up to the top. And to just compare in contrast, it was really, really frustrating to see the gap there and not be able to figure out for the life of me where it's based.
Well, they've got people paying attention now, Derek. I think people have kind of cracked their eyes open a little bit. But if they kick that door in on Saturday in T-Town, people will not only be watching them, they'll be talking about them. They're not going to have any choice. They will absolutely have to start talking about South Carolina as it pertains to the bubble. And I guess
he agrees. He said absolutely.
He agrees. He's had enough. But there you go, Derek Scott, voice of Gamecock basketball. Carolina baseball is set to go tomorrow this weekend as well against George Washington. And are you dialing him back?
No, I was going to try and shoot him a text over
Okay. All right. We were going to let him go on that note anyways. But thanks to Derek for joining us as he does each week. Carolina looking for 5 in a row. We're not going to take a break here. We're going to go right to Scott Glaze in just a moment and get some golf in, because Phil Mickelson has stolen the off the course show with in the golf world with his latest comments and all those type things. We haven't had a chance to really catch up with Scotty on his apology, so we're going to do that here in just a moment. Again, thanks to Derek Scott. Thanks to David Shelton for joining us both here on this gorgeous Thursday afternoon where it is warm in the low 80s outside. So hopefully you're going to get out there and enjoy it. Down in Palm Beach, Florida, I know it's warm as well. And Kurt Kitayama is leading the tournament at 6 under. He is a shot ahead of Rory Sabatini at 5 under. The Honda Classic, you can watch it right now on ESPN Plus if you're looking for some Thursday afternoon golf to catch up on. The most notable name that is close to the top of the leaderboard is Brooks Koepka, and he is finished with his opening round at 2 under par. So that is what it looks like.
wildly popular pick this week was Brooks Koepka. It is not a loaded field. Scott can talk more about this, but what he does well with Scott likes to go into the strokes gained and approach and off the tee. It's a hard course. He's a wildly popular pick. Him, Horschel is another popular pick. Fleetwood is another popular pick. I'm on Fleetwood and him as we get Scott in.
There you go. Transitioning from hoops to golf. Hey, Scott.
What's going on, guys?
All right, let's nobody cares who wins the Honda Classic. Come on, let's be serious. Everybody wants to talk about Phil. Yeah. Everybody wants to talk about Phil Mickelson, Scotty. I don't need to set this thing up. We've already talked about it this week. Everybody knows what's happened. Now everybody knows about his apology. Just run with it. What do you want to say on this situation?
Gosh, there's a lot to say. I've heard a lot of differing opinions. I think we've known that Phil Mickelson is quite the gambler, right? On the golf course, the way he plays golf, he has kind of been that swashbuckling type attitude that Arnold Palmer used to have. Hit it hard, go find it, hit it hard again. Taking big gambles. One of Phil, if not Phil's most memorable shot he's probably ever hit was the 6-iron through the trees out of the pine straw in the 13th hole in the final round at the Masters to ultimately go and win another green jacket. That was a huge gamble, that shot. So Phil, notably, and I'm sure which will come out in this book, has gambled on, has racked up immense gambling debts, betting on professional sports. Phil has gotten in trouble with insider trading. So Phil likes the thrill of the gamble and being the smarter guy to come out on the other end of it. So I think that's what Phil was doing here with this Saudi league all along. Phil was gambling. He was hoping to have kind of an inside straight. He was hoping to have a coup against the PGA Tour, that he was going to be the smartest guy in the room. He was going to be able to leverage, as he said, which now claims was off the record, to leverage the PGA Tour, and thought that he was going to be the smart guy and the wittier guy, whatever it needs to be, and would have more players than come with him to this Super League, this Saudi League, and be able to kind of shove it back towards the PGA Tour. Well, the PGA Tour outsmarted Phil, I guess you could say. They called his bluff, whatever cliches you need to use, and all of a sudden, Phil Mickelson was standing out there on his own and looked like a pretty big idiot for doing so. I think that's how we got to this situation. Phil tried to gamble on the whole situation, and he lost. He played a bad hand, played a really bad hand, and then was now singled out and found in total solitude. So much so to where sponsors don't want to align themselves with Phil Mickelson anymore, and as well as other players on the PGA Tour. We saw last week when these players kept getting asked about the Super League or Phil Mickelson. And I mean, Rory McIlroy had some pretty choice words to say. He said, I don't want to kick a man while he's down, and then proceeded to keep kicking Phil while he was down. I think all of these guys were just, I guess, kind of tired of the narrative that Phil was dragging along, maybe some things that were being said by Phil in regards to other players and their connection to this tour that maybe weren't true. So we can talk about this for a long, long time, but ultimately that leads to Phil on Tuesday coming out with, I guess, what you can call an apology. It had highs and lows. I know that there were a lot of people that were then critical of this 6-paragraph apology that Phil put out. He never once mentioned the PGA Tour. He never pledged allegiance to the PGA Tour. He basically blamed journalists. He apologized to the Saudi Golf League and people that he deemed are visionaries and he claimed to have the best interest in golf. So basically, he was kind of setting it up to where we need to be thanking Phil for all of the groundwork that he's done for golf. And he I don't know. There's a lot to unpack. It seemed to me like. Gosh, I'm getting lost in the weeds just trying to get my thoughts together on it.
Here, let me ask you this. Is the SGL, is it DOA? Is it dead on arrival? Is this thing over?
I think so. I think it is. And I think ultimately, and once you really start to think about it, the PGA Tour, the success of the PGA Tour that came from the mid 90s to now is largely credited to Tim Finchem. Now, it's also largely credited to Tiger Woods, but Tim Finchem took over as PGA Tour commissioner in 1994 and then served as the commissioner up until several years ago when Jay Monahan took over. Tim Finchem was an incredibly successful corporate lawyer before coming to work for the PGA Tour. So I think part of what he was instilled in the or what he was able to instill in the administration of the PGA Tour has kind of led to the way that they've been able to operate now in the wake of this threat from the Super Golf League. And I think the way that they handled it, they just kind of strung it out along, never said anything out of line, never got too boisterous about it. We heard grumblings about certain things, kind of let the Saudis do all the talk. And I think behind the scenes, the PGA Tour finally kind of put the screws on the players and said, we need a commitment out of you guys. And I think that's why last week we saw Bryson DeChambeau commit to the PGA Tour, Dustin Johnson, two guys that assumably were on the fence of what they were going to do. We saw more players, John Rahm, commit to the tour. And then we see this statement come out of Phil. And then now that has gone into this week, we're leading into the Honda Classic. There was a mandatory players meeting with Jay Monahan at the Honda Classic where they discussed the Saudi Golf League, among other things. And it was reported by some players that have remained anonymous that he basically said that if you are going to play in the Super Golf League, there's the door. Other than that, I think he was very careful in his choice of words and talking about bans and things that may happen. And then today, 30 minutes ago, maybe longer now, an hour, it was leaked, this letter that Greg Norman, the CEO of the LIV golf properties or whatever it's called, that's running
money
this
behind
golf.
Yeah.
Yeah, this letter was leaked, which I find very convenient. Pretty sharply worded letter from Greg Norman to Jay Monahan of the PGA Tour there, and claiming that this is just the beginning, this is not the end. I view that as when you cut a snake's head off and it still tries to wiggle around and stuff for a little while. I think that that's the analogy I'd like to use with this. I don't see this getting off the ground now. I think a couple of weeks ago, there was concern about it due to these comments from Phil Mickelson, certain things that were speculated to be offered to certain players like Bryson DeChambeau, the silence that we heard from Dustin Johnson, some other things like that of where these guys, the Saudi Golf League, could maybe gain some traction and get some big players. I think they're still obviously going to go down swinging with that letter that comes out from Greg Norman today, but I just don't see the success of the tour really getting off the ground at all now if they don't have anyone that's going to move the needle.
All right, so what happens? I mean, what is the fallout from this? Like, I feel like there's I don't know this, Scott, clearly, but it feels like there probably are players out there maybe that do share some of the same thoughts that Phil has shared about certain things that they're not a big fan of and how the tour treats rights and this, different financial things. But then, there's another side of it where, the PGA Tour can't cave. Like, they can't just say, well, all right, let's renegotiate some things, because if you do that, you're really opening a can of worms. I mean, and you know that, Scott. You start caving to junk like this, who knows when the next guy is going to pop up and say, hey, you know what, if we do this again, but just do it this way and not let any of this stuff get out there, we can get our way on this. So the PGA Tour, although they do hold some cards, I feel like is still in a very interesting situation. The fact that there probably is some change that may be necessary based on what players want and feel like they need, but the PGA Tour might be reluctant to allow for some of that change because of what has led to it, so that this same scenario doesn't unfold again.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen a lot of change on the PGA Tour the last few years with several things, with purses increasing. It was announced that I think it goes into effect this year, to where if you play at least 15 tournaments on the PGA Tour, you're going to get $50,000. $50,000 just for playing in 15 events on tour. You could miss the cut in every single event of those 15. You're still going to get paid. That has been one of the gripes of some guys on tour, of not basically paying everyone. What came out of this meeting earlier this week with Jay Monahan is that the fall, what we've known to be rumored now for a while, is that the fall season is going to change. There's going to be more of an off season. We won't have this wraparound season, because that's what the players want. They want to have more of an off season again. I think the PGA Tour they are aware of what the players want, and they are listening. They are the best tour on the planet. What bothers me with Phil's comments and the way and what he claims to be overzealous greed on the PGA Tour, well, that is exactly what Phil Mickelson is going for here. Phil Mickelson, in his career, between sponsorships, what he's made on the PGA Tour, so on and so forth, has made $800 million, and is claiming basically that the PGA Tour is the one who's jealous. Also, the same PGA Tour who has a retirement fund in place that pays its players, and especially someone like Phil Mickelson, from age 50 in perpetuity. And I don't know the exact number of that like Phil Mickelson's retirement fund would be, but I would say it is probably at least 8 figures that's coming from the PGA Tour. So I find it quite hypocritical that he's going to turn on the tour like that. But the tour is, I think they use this, like you said, and they learn from it, grow from it, and remain open to what the players want. I think they always have done that. I think the overwhelming majority of players do not have the same gripe of Phil Mickelson, like the media rights and things of that nature. Someone, let's take Steven Yeager. I don't know why that name pops into my head, but someone who's a rookie on the PGA Tour, that guy, he is so happy to be there, and this is a chance of a lifetime for him. He could care less about the PGA Tour's media rights and the way that they're using his likeness or image or highlights or anything like that. So I guess there's a beef of what Phil Mickelson has against the tour. Phil Mickelson obviously is looking up to gobble every loose change that there is. And I think that is what has frustrated the players, is the way that he put all of them under that same umbrella of the opinion that he had. But no, I think the tour is going to strengthen from this. And I think it's going to be, who knows? I was thinking about this earlier today. What are we going to think about Greg Norman? And what Greg Norman's doing to his career and legacy. He already had a strike or two against him from the PGA Tour from trying to start a rival golf league in the early to mid 90s that fell flat on its face, and now doing it again later in his career for one of the best champions we've seen, a generational talent, other than Tiger Woods, one of the longest tenured number one players in the world of all time. And he certainly seems to not care too much about the way he's leaving the game of golf, at least in my opinion, with this disrupted nature.
So what will happen to Phil? I mean, one of the things we talked about yesterday. So he's taking some time off. It's TBD as to whether he'll also take time off of Fireside with Phil, which, by the way, I always found to be pretty funny.
And whether it's his decision to take time off is also TBD.
Yeah, don't really have many details, right? Except he's just said, take some time and get things figured out. Now, so people are going to naturally, they have been. We did it yesterday. We're speculating. All right, well, when are we going to see Phil again? I'm just going to ask you one of the question about the conversation we had yesterday. Does he play at Augusta? Should he? Do they let him?
I think they'll let him for sure. He's a past champion at the Masters, and that is such a special thing. If he wants to play at Augusta National, he's going to play at Augusta National. I mean, when Tiger came off of everything that Tiger went through there, over 10 years ago now, his first event back was the Masters. So if Phil wants to do that, and this is such a totally different scenario than Tiger Woods.
Tiger didn't try to blackmail the PGA Tour.
Yes.
Yeah, there's that.
Very true. But we do love, Americans love a comeback story. However, I think Phil Mickelson has always been pretty polarizing. You're either all for Phil or you're not. It's kind of hard to ride the Phil fence. I know that I have later in his career. Growing up early in his career, I was not a Phil fan. That's because I was a Tiger fan, and you cannot pull for both of them.
No.
So as his career has progressed, I've really come to appreciate what Phil has done on the golf course and the champion that he has become, especially last year, the PGA Championship. That was incredible to watch. But there's this overshadows a lot of what he's done on the PGA Tour. I think he will be back at some point. But for all I know, Phil might decide to just totally call it quits and never give the PGA Tour time of day again. If that's really how he feels. Let us not forget, on that same vein of talking about the extreme greed by the PGA Tour's claimed by Phil Mickelson. Remember, he did win that player incentive purse last year, which is $40 million that the PGA Tour is going to be paying him. So another hypocritical thing in my mind.
What do you think he should do? I know we're short on time. Darren has to get out right at 2 today, but let me ask you this. Like, if he just set up a press conference and said, look, I'm going to answer your questions. I'm just going to be honest with everybody. I'm just going to tell you, yeah, I tried to PGA Tour up. Okay. And here's why. And it's the wrong thing to do. Don't you think that people, his peers are going to be like, hey, I didn't like you anyways. Now I just don't like you anymore, but that's no big deal. Phil knew that. But like the public, people are going to be like, at least he owns it.
I don't think the public cares right now. I mean, I have buddies, and one of them is in our Podbean chat room right now, who, West Ashley Gamecock, appreciate you listening all the time. He said he still loves Phil. I have buddies who have been texting me for days, still love Phil. I mean, the public likes Phil.
Yeah. I'm a Tiger guy myself.
I think Phil really, he should have come out in his apology or his statement and just kind of said, hey, look, I made a bad call, whatever it needs to be. I got involved with stuff that is far too complicated for me to try and convey. Just really kind of come a little more hat in hand rather than trying to explain some things or, claim that he's doing what's best for the tour and that changes need to be or changes come from disruption. I think, and this is a little bit maybe conspiracy theory-ish, I think Phil is doing this in light of this book that's going to come out with Alan Shipnuck. Maybe there's some stuff in there that after the fact, Phil, maybe is going to have to address. I don't think, for all we know, who knows what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. But according to Alan Shipnuck, who wrote this book, this is an unauthorized biography. So it's not like Phil hired him to write the book. Alan Shipnuck is writing the book, and he's been a golf writer for years and years. He claims that he tried to sit down to speak with Phil 3 times about the book. If he wanted to give input to it, Phil would not. It was only when the Saudi stuff started buzzing around that Phil then called Alan Shipnuck, according to Alan, to want to discuss the book a little more, maybe find out what's in the book, and to give his stance and his opinion. That's how we got all these quotes on this Saudi Golf League. So I think there could be more things that come out in this book, and Phil is preemptively laying a little lower, coming off all these comments that he's made, what's already come out. And maybe he's going to have to address those before we see him, on the fairways giving thumbs ups again.
Wow. Yeah, damage control is what Phil's in right now. All right, StonoFerryGolf.com is where you can book your tee times. I mean, has anybody seen the weather? What the hell is wrong with you? Tee it up. Get out to Stono Ferry, the beautiful, original, and best Hollywood that we have in America. Hollywood, South Carolina. StonoFerryGolf.com. It's going to be a little bit cooler on Saturday, but who doesn't like playing golf in the mid-60s? Yeah, it's going to be perfect. StonoFerryGolf.com. You can see the man, Scott Glaze. Scott, who wins the Honda Classic? Is it Billy Horschel or Brooks Koepka?
And now I like that Darren brought up Billy Horschel, because that's going to be my pick. He's been in pretty good form. It's a good golf course for him. We see a lot of players. This is a very tough golf course. Not often does the score reach double digits under par. So look for a little change of pace than we've seen to start the year on the PGA Tour. Tougher golf course, and I'll go with Billy Horschel. Yeah, I think he's going to be a good pick this week.
All right, I'm going with let's see here, Max McGreevy. I like that name. Go Max. Go get him.
If Max McGreevy wins, you got something on me. I don't know what it is yet.
Max McGreevy, he's the guy. Scotty, thank you. Great stuff, folks. If you're interested in lessons and all that, in addition to tee times, that's where you go. Stono Ferry Golf, StonoFerryGolf.com to book them, sign up, pro shop, and the best hot dogs in town. You great bar. They got great bourbon out there, by the way. Stono Ferry Golf in Hollywood. Have a wonderful weekend, my friend. See you next week.
Thanks, guys. See you.
Scott Glaze. As we depart on this Thursday afternoon, Art Briles officially named offensive coordinator at Grambling State University. The latest picture of Art Briles, he looks like he's been living behind a dumpster for the last 4 years. Homeless. And how about this? Tennessee right-hander Ben Joyce was out for the season last year with Tommy John. He transferred in from Walter State Junior College, one of the best JUCOs in the country. Last night, they beat UNC Asheville. Ben Joyce threw 16 pitches. One of them was 103.5 miles per hour. Oh, my God.
Everyone go get Tommy John.
Carolina's going to see him in about 3 weeks. Hold on to your nipples. Holy smokes. Wow. Corey McCartney's going to join us tomorrow. Mike Morgan planning to join us tomorrow, and Rafael Esparza tomorrow. Wow, what a fun day. For Darren, I'm Jamie. Have a thirsty Thursday. We'll see you at noon tomorrow on JB and Goldwater.